years, but gotten to know her pretty well in the last few. First, I want to say, let's shout out, today is her 5-year anniversary.
Yeah.
One of the first things I noticed about Brenda was that she really is a cheerleader for AA, and tries to really get the word out at every opportunity, reaches out, and tells people about all these things this program can offer, and is a good example. So, Brenda.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thanks, Colleen. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Vic, for asking me to speak. Yeah, today's my 5-year anniversary. Woohoo! It's an honor to be here. My name's Brenda, and I'm an alcoholic. My last drink was 5 years ago today. Since then, now all of a sudden I'm nervous. Yeah. Okay, so what it was like, what happened, and what I'm like now. All right. I was born in 1961, right? And my mom and dad, they were married, and I'm from this area. I was born in Ionia, born in Blodgett, actually. And but my dad left when I was about 2 months old, and I never saw him again after that until I was about 18. In the meantime, while I was being grown, I don't want to say I was really raised. I do love my parents today, and we made amends and all that good stuff, so I'm not trying to say anything negative about them. But back then, when I was a little girl, they weren't very capable of raising a child. My mom was a really bad drug addict and a really bad alcoholic, and so was my dad. And we were Catholic too, so we had to have, put on a good show for everybody. And my grandma worked at the Catholic church and stuff like that. So, appearances were a big deal to my family, and my mom was a massive drunk, and there was a lot of shame there. Anyway, so mom ended up getting pregnant when I was about 2. I've been told, I don't remember this stuff right. So mom had to be sent away, gave that kid up for adoption, and I just went from house to house, relative to relative, babysitter to babysitter, stuff like that. I did not know that wasn't a normal way for a kid to grow up. And so I grew up like that until I was 7 years old. And when I turned 7, my mom got married. My mom married this guy that I just absolutely loved. I adored him. And he was going to be my daddy. So I was so happy. And remember when you're a little kid, how you get elated about stuff, and you just, that was me. And I was going to finally have a dad. And it's going to be like for us kids. So the minute my mom got married to him, everything changed. He went from being like the coolest dude that I could ever hang out with and be with and do fun things with, to the meanest SOB that ever walked the planet of the earth. And I don't want to get too caught up on the childhood stuff, because it's ugly, it's nasty, it's triggering. I don't want to cause any harm. I will just say that there's a lot of physical abuse, emotional abuse. It started when I turned 7. Some glimpses of how this man groomed me, I guess, from 7. So he went from my buddy to playing a game. It was a game that he would tie me up in the basement to a pole and a straitjacket and leave a bucket for me to pee in if I had to. I never did. Just that type of shit. And then I had secrets. I couldn't tell my mom about the games that we played, the secrets, and just between him and I. And so that went on from Oh, the other thing too that happened when my mom married that guy is we started to do geographics. See, before that, I didn't live with my mom, so she didn't take me places wherever she went. But then now she's married and she's got this guy, and we just did a whole bunch of geographics. There was no holding us down. And you know, now I know probably why. It's because they had a lot of shit to hide. He was also abusive to my mom. He was mean to my mom. I couldn't understand why he was mean, but he was. And so the sexual molestation started when I was 11. And I knew it was wrong, right? I knew it was wrong. I went along with it because I didn't want to anger him because I'd seen him beat my mother. So all that shit happened. And then also too, my stepdad, he was in the army and he was a police officer, military police, and then a railroad detective. And so whenever the police got called or you know, just the horrible shit would happen, if we called the police would side with him because he was one of them, and that's just how it was. So, growing up in an environment like that, a little kid, right, I did not learn the appropriate ways to respond to life events in a lot of situations. And a lot of the mentality that I had, these were outside issues. They weren't directly alcohol related, so I had to take care of them with shrinks and counseling and stuff like that. And I did, but, and, you know, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, so I'm sorry, but, so I lived with them from 11 to 15, and during that time frame, 11 to 15, well, the first time I ever used any type of a mind-altering substance, it was a drug. I was 9 years old. I did not drink alcohol until I was 14 years old. I do remember the very first time I used that drug. I wasn't a happy little kid then anymore. I didn't like my life. I didn't like those people I lived with. And when I did that drug, it took me away from them. And swear to God, from 9 years old, I chased that. Chased it. Like, it was the obsession. And I can remember clearly, like I was like about 26, I was with my sister, I know I'm jumping ahead, and I apologize. I remember her saying something about cocaine, and I remember saying to her, don't you ever fucking try that shit, you will be chasing it the rest of your life. And she never did, but that's how I think I was born an addict sometimes, but anyway, I chased it. And I had a terrible home environment, and I wanted out. And the only way I knew how to get out is because, like, the teachers wouldn't help me, the cops didn't help me, my relatives wouldn't help me. Like, he got caught in an act. The adults that caught him didn't help me, right? So I knew that it was going to be up to me. I was a kid. I didn't know the right ways. So I did everything I could to get in trouble so that they would get rid of me and throw me away. And it worked. And by the time I turned 15, I was out and free. And I was living with my grandparents, who then took legal custody of me. And I was a heathen, and I was terrible. So I don't even know how they did it. But the only rule I had at 15 then was that I had to graduate. So I did graduate. I remember my senior year, I had to go to school 12 hours a day because I flunked everything in my quest to get thrown out. And it might sound like this is a regret. It's not really, but it was my goal to be valedictorian, and I think I might have been able to do it because I have a really big ego that tells me shit like that. But when all that drama started happening at my house, and I knew that my mom wasn't going to protect me, you know, my mother, she was complacent, so She was an abuser herself by her complacency, right? Shit, I lost my train of thought. So, anyway, I got out. So now I'm a grown, well, I'm almost grown, I'm getting ready to graduate. Graduated in 1979. And my grandmother, she calls my dad, and he comes from California, Mr. Moneybags. He swoops in, limo, throwing hundies around, and I am impressed. I don't even know him, and he says, "What are you gonna do?" And I'm like, "Oh, we can come live in California." Holy shit, that was so just awesome. Got to California, living on the beach. It was cocaine and just drinking and partying and no responsibility whatsoever. I was in heaven, right? And I did that until I thought I was gonna get caught embezzling where I lived or where I worked, and I didn't want to go to prison. I was only 22 or something, 21. And I got a little nervous because I had a big drug problem and I drank like fish, and I was, like I said, I was a heathen. So I came back to Michigan. I took another geographic. You know, by the time I was 21, I think I lived in 19 different places. I think I remember what I was going to say is like whenever a kid is raised in an environment like that, they're gonna grow up messed up and have trauma and have to find ways to get through that. And then we had, you know, my alcoholism on top of it, and the fact that it was actually working for me at the time, and it made me a rock star, and it turned me into everything that I couldn't be without it. And it allowed me to lie to myself just enough to be able to say that, like, you know, the people that I was hanging out with and spending time with, that they loved me, maybe. Because I was just broken. My whole life, I remember always wondering why nobody loved me. All the other kids' moms and dads stuck around. Why didn't mine want me? And then why, when I got one, was he so mean to me? He ruined my life. And so, and that is kind of true. He ruined my childhood. But he did not ruin my life. But for many, many years, I believed that he had. But I hadn't found Alcoholics Anonymous yet. So let me just say, I don't want to get stuck in like a great big ass dumb drunk log, although it is only 20 after. I'm not retreating my time, but I don't want to do a whole bunch of drunk logs because it's the same story as yours. I was a drunk. I was an asshole. I didn't have any self-respect. I didn't love people. I wasn't good to my family. I was selfish and self-centered. I lied. I would use anything that you had on you. I would use you. I was a lower than whale shit type like person. So now, like, gosh, I have this rotten brain that just constantly tells me what a piece of shit I am. At this point in my life, you know, I'm like in my 20s or whatever, and I truly do believe now that the only reason that I was put here was so that people could sexually abuse me because I was strong enough to take it. Because I was trying to find some logic as to why, if there was really a God, that he would let some shit like that happen to me. And see, I hated him, God. I believed that there was a God because I was raised Catholic, so he floated in the sky. He had a throne and a staff, and when you were bad, he would strike you, you know, and how kind of, I'm not trying to disparage the Catholic religion. I mean, like, the religion, it's a beautiful ceremony, but it's religion. And it didn't make any sense in my brain, so it didn't help me as a kid. So I end up getting married. After I get back to California, I found some guy that would marry me. He's a nice dude. We had 2 kids together. But I was a really bad wife. Cheated, lied, drugged, just, you know, it was disgusting. And then I got caught. So I was about 28, I got caught cheating. So I went to rehab. I was smart enough to know that that was my get out of jail free card. I got a problem. I'm a drug addict. I'm an alcoholic. Got me some slack. I was just still a lying little bitch. I had no intention of permanently stopping. I knew it was going to be a while. And I really did kind of want to get my shit together because I wanted to be a good wife. And I wanted to have a child. I knew I wouldn't be a good mom. I really didn't think I would. And I knew I was going to have to get sober before I did that. So I wasn't going to bring a child into the world. I was smart enough to know that I was a drug addict and that I was an alcoholic, and it was going to take a miracle to get better. And I really did not believe that I was going to get a miracle, so I just kept using the drugs and the alcohol because I wanted to die. I was too big of a chicken to do it myself. I thought about it in all kinds of different ways, how to kill myself. That's where my head always goes. I want to kill myself. I have a bad day. I just did it last weekend. I tried to rake the lawn, it broke, I wanted to kill myself. Like, that is how this insanity horseshit works sometimes in my brain. You know, I'm 5 years sober, and that thought comes to me. It really wasn't over the rape, but it was something just as stupid, you know? But so, and I did it again, I just lost my spot because I jumped back. So, I didn't believe that there really was any redemption for me. But my mom, at this point in time now, I'm about 39 or 29, and my mom is sober, and she's talking to me about Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to rehab and I get out, and I managed to stay sober for 6 years. But I was still a little manipulator. You know, I'd gone to enough meetings, I found a lady to be my sponsor who I knew wouldn't make me work any steps. So I was like, yeah, that's a smart bitch, aren't I? When none of this worked. You all would think I was doing it. All I had to do was talk like you guys, and I'd be good. And so I did that for 6 years. You know, what I do want to say about that, though, that 6 years, it was a blessing, because I did have this one experience, and I said I wanted to talk about what I'm going to. I did not like God. My God was a piece of shit. He was pussy. He was weak. I didn't like him at all, period. And my mother, she says to me one day, she says, well, why don't you just go duke it out with him? Why don't you just go tell him what a piece of shit you think he is then? If it's that important, you just do it. So I did. So I didn't do it immediately. I waited. I had some privacy. We were up north, and I was in a mountain someplace, and I was like, this would be a good time to tell that SOB what I think of him. I'm on this mountain. I'm like, you mother, you let this happen. Right? Screaming. And in between the screams, fighting, we were going at it. I heard an animal. comes this lady. I was like, oh shit, this poor lady. She was out hiking in the woods and heard me go crazy up there. I was mortified. But it was so cathartic. Am I saying the word right? Cathartic. It worked. It worked. I put that one to bed. He was done. And the beginning of a higher power started to be born in my heart. I didn't get sober. I didn't stay sober, I should say. I went back out after 6 years. I had my boys. I turned 40. Got divorced. Quit my job. Left my boys. Moved to Ohio. Moved to Florida. Moved to Arizona. Moved to California. Moved to Florida. And come back to Michigan. So I'm a big geographic. And in all those states where I lived in all kinds of different areas. Went to an area out. And instead of explaining myself or making anything right, I just moved. So for that 10 years now, that 10 years, that's when the shit really got ugly. I threw away everything. I had excellent credit, I had money. By the time I was done, I had none. There's something I want to emphasize. When I first started to get sober, one of the things that, constantly coming up in my life was my childhood sexual abuse and all the abuse. But as a kid, there was nothing I could do about any of that shit. But as an adult, there were a lot of things I could do about it. We didn't do anything positive with it though. It wasn't a deliberate manipulation. I don't believe I knew any different. But as an adult woman, I took that shitty experience as a kid and I used it to garner sympathy, play the victim. And you get a lot of mileage on being a victim from sexual abuse. You get a lot. And so just let me tell you, I'll get back to it, but I'll tell you how I skinned that rabbit later on in my course. So I'm an asshole. I have a heart attack. I'm 58 years old. And this is what happens when I'm having my heart attack. So women who have heart attacks different. They say, and I guess I did. Because mine was jaw pain, shoulder pain. And I thought I was having an anxiety attack for 3 days. I was meditating for my heart attack, right? So it wasn't going away. And there was I need to back up. So I had my heart attack February 6th, 2019. I've been in pain for 3 days. I don't think anything's wrong with me. Somebody makes me go to the hospital. I'm in the emergency room. They draw my blood. They're doing this test for the troponins. And they come back and they're like, your troponins are elevated. That means you had a heart attack. And I'm like, you're just a bunch of fucking idiots. I have not had a heart attack. You have the wrong blood. You have the wrong person. I'm completely fine. I have a job interview in the morning. Let me get dressed. I'm leaving. I'm having an anxiety attack. I need my Xanax. They left. Probably to go call security. I really don't know. I got dressed and left. And I get to the door, and that prick, she's still a prick, stops me and makes me go back in. So I go back in, begrudgingly, because I will get another opportunity. So I just have to be patient. and I got one. They had to do an ultrasound on my heart, and they shoved me in the hallway. And I remember seeing a door, and I was like, oh, I can get out that door. And it didn't matter that I didn't have any clothes. I swear, night, just the gown, that was it. And I was gonna walk my fat ass through Scottsdale, out of Scottsdale, and up home. Well, this great big, huge nurse, I swear to God, she was like this tall. Saw me leaving, and she comes out and she's like, you get back on that bed. And I'm like, okay. At that point, I'm like, you're such an idiot. You know, like, what are you doing? So they do the ultrasound, and I'm just gonna let them do whatever they want to do. And they're like, okay, we gotta do an angiogram. And they get me in there, and they're wheeling me in. Okay, so now this part gets a little screwed up because I'm alone, and I'm, no family or nothing. And these procedures are a little scary, right? But so anyway, they wheel me into this big operating room to do the angiogram on me. And they've got this music pumping in. And like there's maybe 5 people in here as old as me that will know this song. Aldo Nova's Life is Just a Fantasy. That was playing on the music in the operating room. And that song is all about doing cocaine. The whole song. In my head, and in that horseshit environment, all this crap is going through it. And there was enough of a whisper, a divine whisper maybe, that said, it might not have been divine because this is what it said, bitch. This is what got you here. Yep. And it was like, it was macaroni and cheese too. Back to I know it. Yeah. It was poor lifestyle choices. And I didn't walk enough. So they pushed me out. I'm on a gurney. Nurses aren't supposed to say this stuff. And he was a great big guy, and he probably seemed like he was a great big guy because I'm laying on a gurney. But he looks down on me and he says, I am so sorry. I'm like, what? Do the fucking angio. Do it. They couldn't because my widowmaker has an elbow in it. So I can't get a stent or what, right? So they're like, okay, quadruple emergency bypass, prepper, get her ready. That's the kind where they go in, they saw your sternum, they shove your shoulders down and pop your heart out, and they give you 4 new veins. And that's what I have, right here. Okay, who's paying attention? February 6, 2019 is when I had my heart attack. But what's my sobriety date? It's a fucking insanity of this disease. I was so sick, demented, insane, obsessing, that I thought, because I had 4 new veins, that I had a completely new lease, and that I could go out and do it all over again and be better at it. That is just so demoralizing, that incomprehensible demoralization. Yeah, you give a shit. Makes me sick. So, okay. Now I know that I'm going to get my wish, I'm going to die. Well, and now I don't want to die. So, I decided everything was horrible. Everything was horrible. I was going to try to get sober again. And I went to AA. And I kept going. I had to ask 9 women to be my sponsor before we found someone to take us. But she was the perfect one for me. She was a drill sergeant, and she was like my mom. My mom, I gotta mention my mom. My mom's name is Reggie. This is my mom. I did want to say this, that my home group is in Saranac. It's the Saranac Young People's Group. The group's been going on for like about 30 years. It's my home group now. It's my mom's home group. This is my mom holding a picture in the meeting. And it's a picture of the witch from the Wizard of Oz. My mom was called the Wicked Witch of the Steps because anytime anybody would start pissing or mowing, she'd be like, well, what step are you working? She knows. Anyway, so I know I'm gonna have to deal with my mom. My poor mom, she's a 12-step me. God. Anyway, so I make a sincere effort to get sober, and I do everything they tell me. I went to 90 and 90. I got a sponsor. My sponsor would say, we would go to meetings like this, and every seat would be full, and you didn't even get a chance to talk unless a mic was passed to you and stuff. And she would say to me, when in Arizona, we have to identify. So like the first 30 days of sobriety, you know, you stand up and identify on day 28 or whatever. So anybody that would identify, I would have to go up and get at least 2 women's numbers. She said, code them in your phone. She says, I'm not going to be available all the time. When shit hits the fan, you're going to want somebody to talk to, and you're going to need to know how to get them. So I did that. I went to workshops. I did the steps. I got sponsees. I prayed. I worked the steps. And I paid attention. And then I realized that there were more than 12 steps to this program. That you know, we've got traditions, and we've got concepts, and we have things like general service, and we have all these tools at our fingertips to help us get better, to help us live in 11, or 10, 11, and 12, to help us get to the promises. And I was able to, with the steps taught me the logic to my behavior. Like, I could see that I was insane. My behaviors were insane. That a normal person wouldn't do that shit. And then try to do it over again successfully. So I could comprehend that. And I knew I was the shit. Don't ever forget it. None of you. Top of the food chain here, except for one other. And that was a higher power. But you all were the higher power. And you guys were my link to Jesus, I guess. Or God, or whatever, you know, I'm going to call that higher power. But you guys, you are my spiritual in nature family. I guess maybe that is a good way to put it. I don't know, but I started to see that there was a power within these rooms that lived in these steps, that in our traditions and in our concepts, and the shit that we did for each other that was divine. And if it wasn't at least divine, it was love. And I've never had. So now, I don't ever want to give it up. So, thank you, Colin, for recognizing that I'm kind of the ward for AA. But it's because this program saved my life. And I've worked these steps. And I pay attention the way I do. Not because I really do have this ginormous ego that's obnoxious, and I fight it all the time, but I want to be the best that I can be for you, because I love you, and you know, you guys are my tribe, and I need you. I need you. I get drunk. We stay sober. So, I have these demons. So, it's really hard not to try to garner pity when that's kind of our MO. So, I do my steps. My fourth step. Oh my God, fourth step. Let me just say this. Do a trial fourth step first. don't overthink it. Just right. My first real fourth step lasted 4 days. My poor sponsor. I cried 4 days straight. It was awful. So, and here's that word again, cathartic. It really felt good. And whew, it was a lot of work. And I went for a walk that night afterward. Walking in the golf course with my girlfriend. We're laughing. I'm like, oh, I gotta do my fifth step tomorrow. I'm like, oh my God, I just did my fourth. I said it was so hard. I said it lasted 4 days. I said my fifth is gonna take but a minute though, because I don't have any character defects. I said that. I just purged all that shit in 4 days. She hadn't tried to go through any of it with me yet. By the time I was done with my fifth, I'm like, well, damn. But what I was so grateful for was the fact that she was able to take all of those resentments and steer it right back around to about 2 or 3 primary character defects. You know, ego, pride, I can't remember the others. But you know, so I had a lot to work on. And then I just started doing the next best indicated step, which was, well, shit. Okay, I do have some character defects. Well, I don't want to be an egotistical asshole. So, God, take that. I'm ready to get rid of it, you know. And I deliberately kept some. All my girlfriends know that I've kept all the character defects where I scream at inanimate objects and stop signs. I choose to keep them. And they make me as miserable as I allow them to. But it's a decision today. Today it doesn't drive me. Today I almost do it on purpose, just to purge garbage and a stop sign rather than the UPS guy or whatever, right? So I recognize these character defects and I'm willing to get rid of them. I ask for them to be gone. And I like to use humor to hide behind a lot. But I also just like humor too, so I'm not always hiding. The one thing that I used to say, and it's true, and I hate it, it gets a laugh, but honestly it really should. I was a blackout drinker, which makes my amends list really short, because I don't fucking remember. Because that's horrible though, because think about it. I know I hear you and you and you, right? And I don't know, I have this to apologize for, or try to make amends for, I should say. Anyway, I get my amends list. I've only got one person on my F no never column that I'm never apologizing to. Well, I just made amends to that person last Sunday. It's my last And he was a dick. I said, I'm really sorry. Yeah, whatever I said, right? And he goes, yeah, you were an asshole. I mean, he was a dick, but I had it coming. I was a horrible whiny bag. Good for you. I don't know what else to say. I mean, that's how far. I do want to tell you this. I've had a spiritual experience as a result of working these steps, And I've had it and maybe this is why I'm like such a cheerleader, because I've had it in both ways. You know, the educational variety and the kind like the Bill Wilson bright light type shit. So I'm gonna tell you the bright light one first, because the educational variety one takes longer. Like you've got to do steps, concepts, traditions. I mean, it takes a while with sponsors and but it grows and it's beautiful. But here's the stepdad. I'm in a bar, not drinking. I'm sober. I was just watching a band. And he walks in Michigan. He doesn't live in that state. And he walks in, and I see him, and like I have a good poker face, but I didn't at that moment. I just went, and he looked at me, and he went, and I was like, "You're a dead and effer." He was mocking me. Pride ego. Now he's gonna fuck that. Oh, I mean, like my brain just fractured. It felt like. So I had a plan. It just developed that quick. He came over to the table where I was standing and he had his phone in his hand. Or where I was sitting and he had a phone. He sat down and I said, I was going to get him through the phone. And I said, what's on the phone? You got pictures of your new house? And I already told y'all about how my mom died and fleeing Arizona and all that shit. I won't have time, but I'm in Michigan and my mom has just passed. And I got some real hatred in my heart for this son of a bitch. And I said, well, let me see that. And he slid his phone. And when I took that phone, I was going to grab his hand. And I was going to let him and everybody in that bar know what he did to me and how I hated him and what a piece of shit he was. And as he went to slide the phone to me, he says, it's peaceful there. It's peaceful there. And all of that hatred, all of that anger, every bit of it fucking fell out of me. And I heard a voice that said, everybody deserves peace. And I couldn't be mad or hate him or anything anymore. God took that from me. That's my higher power. My higher power is a fucking rock star. You guys are a rock star because you helped me build that higher power. My higher power will kick every fucking character defect's ass. And I'm sorry to be cussing like it. It's 17 years working in a prison and I'm trying to be good. My higher power will beat that guy in the throne's ass all day long. That's how big my higher power was that day, and it has remained. And I was at my home group when I was talking about this experience, and I'm like, nobody deserves to be forgiven for child molestation and beating. And I'm like, I've seen him beat my mother's face in. I mean, nobody deserves forgiveness for that, right? And one of the guys there said, and this was funny too, because remember I talked about my mom, she had 40 years of sobriety when she died in October 2020. And Saranac Young People's Group was her home group. Well, back 40 years ago, some women sponsored guys, right? And mom sponsored this guy. And she taught him this. He said, you don't have to forgive him, but you can reconcile that in your heart. That was my mom telling me that I don't have to forgive. I said, nobody ever has to. But you can reconcile it somehow. And I did.
I did then, and that's kind of why I talk a little bit about it openly here, because like I don't like to in mixed groups because it's sensitive, but it's my life. That's my story. I do walk a free woman today, and I'll just close with this real quick. So Sunday, I got a call. My son, who lives in Chicago, was in the emergency room here in Michigan. Now, he was supposed to come and see me Saturday, but he didn't. He blew me off and I didn't call. So I stayed home all day Saturday in self-pity. Martyr, whatever you want. Wouldn't help me. So I go to a meeting Sunday morning. I feel a little bit better. I get the call on my way home that he's in the hospital. So I go to the hospital, and I have to call my ex. He comes up. But that experience, I'm in this room with my kid who annoys me, and my ex who annoys me more. And in my head, the alcoholic is just yammering. Oh my God, what about me? I'm like, what? So, but I managed to keep that part of my mind quiet. I reached out to a couple friends in text. I couldn't call my sponsor because I had to keep things quiet. I have called her since then, and I have talked to my sponsor today. But I was able to sit through all of those emotions and get through it. Like fucking watch. They didn't know inside I was cracking. They didn't know inside that all the dragons in the cages got loose and were fighting and tap dancing and all that shit. But I was able to keep it together. I didn't want to drink. Remember the suicide shit though? You know, I just want to do it for 3 weeks. But, sorry, I probably was annoying. The gift of Alcoholics Anonymous has given me the ability to be able to apply logic to those situations and to truly have, like, the next best indicated step is really going to be the next best indicated step. And if I'm unsure, I know I've got people I can call. I'm excited about recovery, sobriety, Alcoholics Anonymous, all of it. It's given me a new life, and I appreciate it. And so that's why I dig in, and that's why I learn what I learn, because I just want to be the best representation that I can be for my friends here in this room when I need you to be the same for me. So I guess for that, I'm done. Thank you.
Right.